Hi, I'm Sarah, the designer for JewelrySupply.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a soldering technique, but first let's go over a couple of safety tips. The soldering iron becomes hot when you use it, so never leave it unattended around kids or pets. Always make sure that you have adequate ventilation because we're using flux. Wear short sleeves, remove any excess jewelry that you may have, and always wash your hands after you're done with this technique. The first step that you want to take whenever you're soldering something is to make sure that you have each piece that you're going to be soldering together held so it's stationary while you're soldering. For this, I have two third hands that are each holding one of the copper wires that I'm going to join together. For the next step, I'm going to be using some solder and flux, and we actually sell them in a package that comes together. That item number is S0242. Now the flux that's in here comes in this handy little bottle like this. It's very, very important that you put the smallest amount of flux possible on the joint, due to the fact that when this flux heats up, if there's too much on here, it'll spatter and spit flux everywhere, and since flux is something you don't want to get onto your hands or onto your clothes, it's a very good idea to use less in this instance than more. I also have a soldering block underneath the area that I'm going to be working, and that's going to protect my table or any surface that you're going to be working on from getting damaged. Now, take your solder and unravel just a little bit because you don't want to be working with your fingernails right next to where you're going to be putting the iron. So unravel a little bit so you can work with this stick just like this. Your soldering iron is going to get extremely hot, as I mentioned before, so make sure that even if you have it turned off, you allow for a pretty good range of space between you and the soldering iron at any time. So the first thing that we're going to do is heat up the soldering iron, and that's going to take a little while, so just be calm and patient. The point of the flux being here is to create a vacuum that's actually going to suck that solder in and all around the joint. So be listening for when the hissing stops when you put the soldering iron onto the solder. When that happens, you know that you're done and you don't have any more flux. So now I'm putting the solder right here onto the joint, and I'm going to be putting the soldering iron right over the top of that. Now this is going to happen pretty quick. You're going to notice that the solder melts, and it's going to work its way all around that joint, just like this. So when you think you have a pretty good joint, remove the soldering iron, put it back into its cradle, and just let the joint sit for a couple of minutes so that it can cool completely. Remember, these third hands are also made of metal too, so it's also a wise idea not to go and immediately start touching them and maneuvering them. Let everything sit. And that's basically all that there is to basic soldering. Whenever you're done using your soldering iron, it is always a good idea to do what's called tinning to the tips. And I'm just going to allow it to heat up for a minute, and all tinning means is just putting a little bit of solder on the end of it to keep any oxidation away from getting all over the tip of your iron. So when that's all heated up, you just simply take a little bit, not a lot, and just put it over the tip. Allow it to cool, and then as soon as it's completely cool, you can remove the tip from the end of this soldering iron, and you're set.